High in the mountains of Norway, a patch of ice that has not moved in a millennium is shrinking. As it pulls back, the ground underneath is not bare. Scattered across it are things: a woolen tunic, a leather shoe, and a wooden sled lying exactly where someone set it down and walked away. This was a road, a mountain pass that people crossed for 10 centuries until the ice grew over it and the maps quietly forgot it had ever existed. Now the ice is letting go, and the road is coming back. And the same thing is happening everywhere. All across the planet, the frozen ground that held the world still for ages is thawing, and what runs out of it is not only water. Whole lost worlds are surfacing, forgotten roads, animals from the Ice Age, a forest older than any country on the map, even a flower that last bloomed before our species had figured out farming. We like to imagine the deep past is gone, filed away, out of reach, finished. It is not. The deep past has been sitting in cold storage this entire time, and the storage is starting to open. So let me walk you through the world the ice is handing back, and let me start with that road in the mountains. The place is called Lendbreen, and for most of human history it was a shortcut, a high pass over the spine of Norway, used for roughly 10 centuries by travelers hauling goods and driving herds from one valley to the next. Then the climate cooled, the ice spread across it, and the route vanished so completely that nobody alive remembered it had been there. When the ice patch finally began to melt, archaeologists found the pass littered from end to end with the ordinary debris of ordinary life. A tunic 17 centuries old, still soft enough to fold. Horseshoes, mittens, a knife with its wooden handle intact. The bones of pack horses that did not make it across. Hundreds of objects, reaching from Roman times through the Viking Age, each one dropped on some forgettable afternoon and then frozen at that precise instant. What gets me about Lendbreen is what is missing. There is no gold, no tomb, no treasure of any kind. And that absence is the whole point. Ice does not choose. It keeps a lord's brooch and a porter's lost glove with exactly the same patience. So what comes back to you is not the highlight reel of history. It is a normal working Tuesday from the year 400, preserved right down to the mitten somebody dropped and cursed about. We almost never get to see the past at that resolution. Cold is the one thing that hands it to us. But why does cold do this at all? Why does a glove last 2 millennia on a mountain when the same glove in your closet would be dust inside a century? That question opens up the quiet engine under this whole story. Rot, it turns out, is not really time doing the damage. Rot is biology. Bacteria, fungi, all the small hungry things that take a body or a tunic apart. Drop the temperature far enough and that entire wrecking crew simply stops working. Freeze the water and choke off the oxygen, and decay does not slow down. It pauses. The object is not aging in there. It is waiting. And the ice does not stop at the things people carried. Now and then it keeps the people themselves, exactly as they walked into the mountains. Back in 1991, hikers in the Alps found a man at the lip of a melting glacier. They took him for a lost climber, maybe a few years dead. He turned out to be 5,300 years old, a contemporary of the first cities, older than the pyramids. We call him Ötzi, and the cold pulled off something no excavation has ever matched. It kept a single human being and one entire ordinary day of his life completely whole, run through everything that normally rots to nothing. His clothes were still on him, a coat of stitched hide, leggings, a bearskin cap, shoes packed with grass for warmth. His gear was still with him, including a copper axe so finely made that its discovery forced historians to redraw the timeline of the Copper Age across Europe. Even the parts of him that should have been long gone could still be read. 61 tattoos sat over his worn joints, the oldest known attempt anywhere to treat pain by marking the skin. And in his gut, his final meal waited, still identifiable. Wild goat and ancient grain, eaten only a few hours before the end. Stop and measure that. We do not know this much about emperors who died 5 centuries ago. Yet because of the ice, we know what one anonymous man wore and carried, and what he ate on a single afternoon 3 millennia before Rome had walls. He is not a skeleton behind museum glass. He is a person, handed forward across 53 centuries with the receipt still in his stomach. Travel north now, and reach further back, and the ice trades people for giants. Across Siberia lies permafrost, ground that has stayed frozen since long before any human walked on it. As it softens, it is returning the animals of the Ice Age, and not as fossils. A fossil is stone, a shape that time left behind. What comes out of the permafrost is flesh. Crews have lifted baby mammoths from the mud, so complete you can count the eyelashes. One small calf still carried her mother's milk in her stomach when she was found, more than 40,000 years after she sank into a bog and stopped. Others have uncovered cave lion cubs, curled nose to tail as if napping, fur and whiskers perfect after 30,000 years in the dark. A woolly rhino came up with its hide and its horn still attached. This is the far past rendered soft, lifted out of the earth for one reason only. The earth got warm. Sit with that image. You can lay a hand on a creature that watched the last ice age unfold, that crossed a continent with no roads, no farms, no human voice anywhere on it, and the animal is still soft under your fingers. I will be honest with you. I find that genuinely dizzying. Not frightening exactly. It is more like standing at the mouth of an impossibly long hallway and realizing the lights at the far end have just flicked on. And this is the point where the story stops being only about the dead. Because the ice was not merely holding bodies. In a few rare corners, it was holding things that were simply paused. In 2012, a Russian team was digging through ancient permafrost beside the Kolyma River, nearly 40 meters down, in soil packed with the bones of mammoths and woolly rhinos. Tucked into an Ice Age squirrel's old burrow, they found a small cache of seeds. Radiocarbon dating put those seeds at 32,000 years old. Then the scientists did something that still sounds impossible. They got them to grow. A flower called Silene stenophylla, last alive while mammoths still grazed Siberia, opened its white petals again under a laboratory lamp. The oldest living thing ever brought back, and it did not return as a frail curiosity. It flowered. It set seed. Those seeds then sprouted at a better rate than the modern version of the very same plant. A scrap of the Ice Age, not just preserved but alive, calmly picking up where it had left off all those ages before. That flower is not even alone. In separate permafrost, researchers thawed a microscopic worm that had been frozen for 46,000 years. Once it warmed up, it woke and then began to reproduce. Creatures like this survive by switching almost completely off, dialing the body down to a whisper and holding there. And for all those millennia, the only thing keeping them on pause was the cold. That, to me, is the eeriest gift in the whole pile. The ice does not just remember the past. Here and there, it kept the past breathing, finger on the pause button, ready to press play the moment the world warmed up. And a handful of scientists no longer want to simply look. Those soft, intact mammoths coming out of Siberia are not only museum pieces to them, they are blueprints. Several labs are now racing to read the mammoth genome out of that frozen flesh and splice it into a living elephant, with the openly stated goal of putting some version of the woolly mammoth back on the tundra within our lifetimes. Sit with how strange that is for a second. The same warming that is melting the mammoths out of the ground is also handing us the recipe to rebuild them, as if the planet is defrosting the Ice Age and the instructions for it at the very same time. Whether that is wisdom or hubris is its own long argument, but the fact that it is even on the table tells you how completely the cold preserved these animals, not as fossils, as something closer to a saved file, waiting to be opened. It is not only seeds and animals either. Sometimes the ice returns an entire place. In Alaska, the Mendenhall Glacier has been retreating for decades, and as it withdraws, something has emerged in the gravel along its edge. A forest. Tree stumps and trunks with their roots and bark still attached, standing upright in the exact spot where they grew. Some are more than 20 centuries old. They were sealed under the ice, in total darkness, for over 1,000 years, and they are still rooted where they lived, like a room nobody has stepped into since the trees were saplings. A whole forest, frozen in the middle of its life and handed straight back. Not stone, not a cast left in rock, but the actual wood standing in the actual ground, meeting daylight for the first time since before Rome fell. Think about that. The ice did not only save a glove or a mammoth, it saved the floor of the world and the living things that were anchored to it. And the ice keeps more than the things you can pick up. It keeps the sky. Deep in the great sheets of Antarctica and Greenland, every snowfall traps tiny bubbles of air, then seals them under the snowfall above. Drill down through those layers, and you are drilling back through time. And the bubbles you pull up are not a model or a guess. They are actual samples of the atmosphere, the literal air the planet was breathing 800,000 years ago. We can open one in a lab and measure the exact sky that hung over the mammoths. The ice did not just file away the world, it bottled the wind. There is a single catch running beneath every part of this, and it is the reason none of it can wait. The pause only holds while the cold holds. The instant any of it touches open air, the clock starts again, and it starts fast. A tunic that survived 2 millennia can fall to powder in 1 summer. A flawless mammoth begins to rot the day it surfaces, so every melt season turns into a sprint. Scientists are running across glaciers and tundra to reach these things inside the narrow window between the ice giving them up and the open world taking them back. Whatever they miss, the planet erases without ceremony. If this is the sort of thing your brain chews on at night, the enormous, the buried, the almost unbelievably old, then subscribe and stick around, because doors exactly like this one are what this channel exists to go looking for. Stack the whole pile together, and the thaw is telling us something we somehow never noticed. For age after age, the ice was quietly doing a job for the entire planet, and nobody ever sent a thank you note. It was the world's memory. The ice held the forgotten road, the Stone Age traveler, the soft Ice Age giants, the sleeping flower, the standing forest, every bit of it, in the dark, in flawless cold storage, so that one day somebody could walk up to a glacier's edge and meet a vanished age face to face. We are the people that day finally arrived for. No human who came before us got to watch a 32,000-year-old flower open, or stand inside a forest that last saw the sun before the Roman Empire fell. The ice held every piece precisely so that someone eventually could see it. That someone turned out to be us. Here is the bittersweet edge of the whole thing, though. The same warming that is finally cracking the vault open is also what will, in the end, empty it. We are the first people ever to watch this lost world come back, and we may also be the last, because the ice can only hand each piece over once. Catch it, or lose it for good. Which carries me back to that road in the mountains of Norway, surfacing one object at a time after 10 centuries underground. Somebody dropped that mitten on a freezing afternoon and walked on, never dreaming a single other soul would lay eyes on it. And here we are, an unimaginable stretch of years later, looking right at it. The world we were so sure was finished and shelved is thawing back into the present, the whole strange and wonderful lost thing at once. For an immense span of time, the ice kept it safe for us. Now it is handing it over. The only question left is how much of it we can catch before it slips back out of reach for good.